Yo guys, long time no see. I I have been completely obsessed with Mitsurugi since the new cards got leaked a couple of weeks ago, and that's the main reason I haven't made any videos. I was like, I wanted to make videos, but I didn't really have anything new to say about White Forest, and I have just been spending so much time on Mitsurugi, and I was like, I can't make a Mitsurugi video because my name is Agnes of the White Forest. My YouTube channel name is all about White Forest, and so that's why I haven't uploaded anything. But then my girlfriend yesterday was like, why don't you just make a Mitsurugi video? And I was like, I can't do that. My channel is all about White Forest. And she was like, doesn't it matter? And then I was like, yeah, you're right. I can just make whatever videos I want. And don't worry, it's not like I've given up on White Forest or anything. It's just that I have really fallen in love with the Mitsurugi cats. And so today I thought I wanted to make just a guide to Mitsurugi, like an introduction, going over a deck profile that I'm using, showing off the basic combos, just like if you're new to Mitsurugi and you want to see what the deck is capable of, and also some discussion on different builds and different options and tech choices and all that, because I've been grinding this deck for the last couple of weeks, and so I have some knowledge to share. Now I will say that I'm not at all an authority on Yu-Gi-Oh or on Mitsurugi or anything like that, so if you see something in this video that you're like, that's not the right build, or I would have done it differently, then by all means feel free to just do that, because yeah, I nothing in this video is set in stone. I think, you know, the cards have only been leaked for a couple of weeks, so I wouldn't trust anyone to have found the perfect build of this deck yet. And so yeah, just keep an open mind, and please don't take everything I say with a grain of salt, and of course think for yourself. This is also mostly for my own sake, to just sort of collect all the thoughts I have had about the deck for the last couple of weeks into one place. And so yeah, and if you don't know me, well, you can probably tell by the video length, but I do pretty long form content, and I do a lot of ranting. That's why my series is called, my normal series is called White Forest Ranting, and I thought to make a corresponding Mitsurugi rant video. So yeah, and it will all just be, I have like a plan in my head, but it will be pretty, for the most part, unstructured. And yeah, so maybe if you're looking for a more concise and just you know, give me what I need to know, and not all all the yapping, then maybe there's some other great guides out there. But if you want to listen to me rant about this deck that I really have fallen in love with, and talk about all the nitty-gritty details, then this video is definitely for you. Yeah, so my idea for today is that I wanted to start with a sort of just a very broad overview of the different builds that you can do of Mitsurugi, and then I'll just deep dive into what I'm playing, and that is the pure Mitsurugi build. So that's what the rest of the video will be focusing on, but I wanted to just give some thoughts on the other builds that exist as well, just so that if you are still wondering what build you're trying to play, then maybe you could get some inspiration or knowledge that will push you in the right direction. Ultimately, is probably one of these builds that is the most competitively viable, and I'll try to point that out when I go over it. But ultimately, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about having fun. It's about playing the build that you resonate with, and so don't. I'll try not to focus too much on what is the most competitively viable, and more sort of go over which kind of person do you think would enjoy this build or that build, and also just try to highlight the strengths of all the builds, even though some of them might have fewer than the others, etc. But yeah, and today I'm rocking this Magic the Gathering playmat. Actually, some of you don't know, but I am came from Magic the Gathering actually, and one of my favorite planes, actually my favorite plane of all time is Pharos, which is the Greek mythos plane. And as you see here, behind us is my favorite god of that plane, and that is Pharika. I just love Pharika. It's my most played commander, and I just thought it would be fitting today since we're talking about reptiles. And then so I'll use this. Oh well, I guess I don't need a field center right now. And then the other thing is that since I've been playing this ever since the cards got leaked, if you remember, the cards did not have any artwork when they got leaked. And so, of course, now we have artworks revealed officially, and they're obviously super cool, but I created some proxies way back where I put my own artwork. Not my own artwork, but just some random images I found. And so those are the ones I will be using today. And as you can see, they are primarily gecko inspired, since I was a huge fan of geckos when I was a child. I actually had some leopard geckos, but just quickly, Wosu looking a bit different as a Tokai gecko. Anamasa looking a bit different as a leopard gecko, and then of course Hapakie is looking a bit different as a day gecko. And Magatama is a sand toy gecko. If I don't know if I'm the only one who remembers those, but these not plushies, because they were filled with sand, but kind of similar in that way. And then finally at the Mitsurugi mirror, which is a gecko sitting on a mirror. So just showcasing these so that you won't be confused. I will try to have the official artwork in future videos, but they have not been uploaded on any database that I know of yet. So and I didn't want to take the pictures and proxy them using like Microsoft Word or anything like that. So for now, these are the new card proxies, and I'll get more into them later, just so you don't get a jump scare when you see them. And then my drink for today is also very simple. It's my girlfriend's Moomin cup and some instant coffee, not very fancy, with some milk and the tiniest drop of honey, because I just came back from a run. It's like 7 in the morning. I woke up super early and went for a run, and I feel like I need some honey. I don't know why. So small teaspoon of honey. So let me just have a sip. And as you can see, we're already 10 minutes in. I don't know why time flies so much when I make these videos. But yeah, so starting off with the builds, I am gonna be talking about 3 builds today, and of course the build that I'll be focusing on is the pure build, but the 2 others I will be talking about are just in this section. The octoadic version and the racial version, because I think that that is the most relevant or talked about versions that I have seen. I'm not saying that there isn't another version out there that I don't know of, and I personally, as a Wild Forest, as a Mina player, have been messing a bit around with Deception of the Sinful Spots, because as you know, it tributes, say, a monster from the field or hand to activate. But I haven't really gone anywhere with it, so I won't be talking about that today. But yeah, so maybe there are other builds out there that definitely could be that I'm not aware of, so please let me know. But this is the one I see talked about the most, so let's just go over them quick, and I just want to highlight their strengths and their weaknesses compared to the pure build. And the first one is octoadics. And these are random cards I want to talk about today. But so let's talk a bit about octoadics. And octoadics, if you don't know, I'm gonna be kind of assuming you know, and then, but I will still like give some just basic overview. It's a dark and light reptile archetype, and it fills the grave with reptiles, and then it has a bunch of stuff that triggers in the graveyard or can activate in the graveyard, and it synergizes well with the Mitsurugi engine because it's all reptile based and it cares about reptiles just like Mitsurugi, and it also has some tribute elements. So tributing is kind of a sort of a hidden property almost of the reptile, like broader reptile typing, where there's a lot of reptiles that care about being tributed or tributing other reptiles and stuff like that. So it all sort of works together, and octoadic is the only real like modern reptile archetype besides Mitsurugi. So you have some like very old Yankee archetype like worms, which is like a flip archetype, and reptilians, which is all about making your opponent's attack 0 on their monsters and then acting upon that. And you have the evil light, which is like a crossover between reptiles and dinosaurs, also very old archetype. And yes, just a bunch of very old archetypes. I might be forgetting anything, but octoadic is the only one, of course, besides Mitsurugi, that is somewhat modern. Although you can still kind of see its age. And there's actually a bunch of different octoadic cards, but we only really play a few of them. I guess it depends on what build you are running, but I would say at the minimum you need to play these 3 cards here. And you also need to either play a let's talk about Snake Rain. You also need to either play a Night Sword Serpent or a Nunu in general. And then there are some more cards you can play. There's this Nephilabyss, which is also pretty cool, and there's a bunch of other octoadic cards you can play as well. And there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but that's a very good resource for octoadic Mitsurugi. I'll put his name in the comments. He's a very knowledgeable guy. This is the only deck he plays. He's octoadic, and so he will be a much better resource on octoadic Mitsurugi. I just here will give you just a short overview. And so the basic idea is that all of these cards, the main thing you want to get to is the Daybreak. Now, Daybreak is just a spell. You tribute a reptile, and then you make for each 2 levels the reptile have, you make one of these Octoadic tokens. Now, I must apologize. I think they are in Portuguese or something, but you make these tokens, and the aim is to tribute a level 8 monster, level 8 reptile to get 4 of these tokens, and then you just do some link claiming. That's the core of it. It gives you like a ton of these tokens, a ton of bodies, so you can link spam. Unfortunately, there's not really any Octoadic extra deck monster that you can go into. Like, the Octoadic archetype is missing a strong extra deck monster that you can use, or even any extra deck monster. There is actually no Octoadic extra deck monster as far as I know. So instead, you are kind of going the generic route where you are most often making a bow, and you are also trying to alien lock your opponent most of the time. And I will get into the alien lock later, but just know that it's a link floodgate that you can set up, but you need to use reptiles. So it's very restrictive. That's why you maybe haven't heard of it before. But you can of course do it here because you're spamming a ton of reptile bodies here. So it's pretty easy to make in Octoadics. And so the alien lock, it's a floodgate, and it's the main selling point of playing Octoadics, I think. And the end result is that you are playing a kind of more combo link climb version of Mitsurugi. And you are utilizing this fact that you have access to a ton of bodies in order to make a bunch of extra deck plays. And the Octoadic cards can grind as well, because some of them can just keep coming back in the graveyard from the graveyard, although they don't really do too much. They are still bodies, so you can like repeatedly use them as material for extra deck plays and stuff like that. So once it gets going, it's very powerful. It makes a ton of bodies. It's very overwhelming to handle for your opponent. And the main starter that you can play is Snake Rain. Now, Snake Rain is an infamous card. You discard a card for cost, and you send 4 reptiles from your deck to your graveyard. And you can also, both, I think, both Nunu and Nauja can also work as starters somewhat. So you do get a bunch of starters in this. It's not all bricks. But Snake Rain is definitely the most powerful starter if it gets resolved. The idea is you discard a card and you send Naea, and then just say Night Sword Serpent, and you send Chaos, and then you can send something else as well. You if you play like the full package, you can send Nephilis. You can also send Saji or Aramasa in this step, so that you can. The idea is to basically link up into a Napao and then revive the Aramasa from the graveyard. But the Octoadic Daybreak also lets you foolish one reptile from your deck as part of its graveyard effect. So you don't technically have to send the Mitsurugi monster to graveyard. With Snake Rain, you can do it later. But of course, it depends on what you're up against and so on. But let's just say that we only sent these 3. The idea is then Night Sword Serpent, of course, comes back. And then Curious has an effect where you can tribute a monster to summon it back. And then Curious has Curse, I think it's called Curse, has a on-summon effect where you can revive a level 4 lower Octoadic from your graveyard, and so you revive the Naya, and then the Naya has on-summon effect to search a Octoadic spell trap, and so you search the Daybreak, and then you activate the Daybreak and you tribute the Curse, which is a level 8, and you get your 4 tokens. And so you have already 5 bodies on here, and that is just off of one play. And there's a bunch of things I maybe didn't get into. You also have whatever the 4th card you sent to the graveyard is, and you have the graveyard effect of Daybreak as well. And so, you know, with these 4 you can just make a bow, and then you can just summon the Mitsurugi monster you sent to your graveyard. You can also do a bunch of other things. You can do whatever you want, basically. And so this is the main, as far as, in my opinion, that's the main play of Octoadic, is that you do this, and there's of course a ton of other nuances as well to the deck, so not trying to undersell it. I think this is very interesting from a deck building perspective and also from a gameplay perspective. There's a lot of different lines, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're looking at a link climbing combo deck. So of course, what kind of weakness does that bring with it in compared to the pure Mitsurugi? Well, of course, with combo decks, you know that one of the weaknesses is the Charmies rate. So, in particular with Octoadics, we have already talked about it. You make a lot of extra deck link summons, so Fuvolas is pretty bad. And then you also, as we just saw here, you summon a bunch from the graveyard. The Mitsurugi cards already do that, but the Octoadic cards just all do that even more. So the main say weakness here is that you are playing a combo deck and you are just weaker to Charmies, right? Pure Mitsurugi, as I will show you later, plays around the Charmies very, very well. There's none of the Charmies that you are really weak to. Of course, it can be a bit awkward if you get double Charmied. You most likely will have to give them 2 draws, but like 2 draws on the double Charmy is still very efficient compared to most decks, and so you are opening yourself up for a weakness when you are playing this more combo focused version. And then secondly, I just want to say that this Snake Rain combo that I just very quickly showed does have a lot of weaknesses as well. Of course, it's not the only thing you can do with Octoadics, and you can of course play around these weaknesses if you have more engine. And so I think that you will need to play a lot of engine if you are playing Mitsurugi Octoadic. Not only because there's a lot of engine requirements, but also just because that these plays are actually not that hard to interrupt. For example, if we just take Snake Rain, when you start off with Snake Rain, you have to discard a card for cost. And of course, this card can get ashed, right? And it's really bad if it gets ashed, because you just went neg 1. So that's straight up 2 for 1 for your opponent. Then if it doesn't get ashed and you send all your Octoadics and Reptiles to the graveyard, you of course have either your Nono that summons itself back or the Night Sword Serpent. Let's just say it's the Nono this time. Now you have a monster on your field, and so Bestials are live for your opponent. Bestials and also, of course, also DD Crow, right? So you want to summon the curse back by tripping a monster. Before you do that, you can get Bestialed. If they don't Bestial you here, you have your curse unsummon effect to summon a level 4 lower Octoadic from your graveyard. Of course, you want to summon Nya. I can't ever pronounce that name. Nauja from your graveyard, since that's the one who gets the Daybreak. So you can also get Bestialed on this effect to summon Nauja back. But even if that does not happen, then of course here you have a choke point where I want to also say that even if they don't Bestial you here, on this activation of curse, they can actually also Ghost Ogre this. And it seems weird because of course it's not negating the revive, but now you have lost access to your level 8 reptile that you wanted to tribute. And so unless you have another way to get to a level 8 reptile, the Daybreak doesn't really do too much, right? If you tribute this, you only get 2 tokens. So Ghost Ogre here is also a point. And then, of course, even if they have no Bestials, no Ghost Ogre, no Ash, they can, of course, still Ash or Veiler this ad here for the Daybreak. And so I just want to say that, of course, Bestials can be pretty good against pure Mitsurugi as well, although there are ways to play around it. And Ghost Ogre, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impairment, and Ash are normally not really that dangerous against pure Mitsurugi. And so you are kind of, basically what I'm trying to say here is, and also let me just add the dimension shifter. Believe it or not, even though I know that D shifter is at 1 right now, but pure Mitsurugi is actually not that bad under D shifter. Like, all the Mitsurugi monsters just trigger when they're tributed. They don't have to go to the graveyard. So you can do a lot under shifter. Actually, you can do so much that you might even consider playing shifter in pure Mitsurugi. I'm not even kidding. But when you play Octiotics, you open yourself up for shift as well. So just want to throw that out there. I don't expect this to be that big part of the meta, but I just wanted to say it. And of course, also, even if you do all of this stuff and you add the Daybreak, then, we as Mitsurugi players know this card also well. You can get trolled right here on the Daybreak. And so now you can just cannot bridge into your Mitsurugi stuff at all. As you can see, compared to the pure version, you just you open yourself up to a lot of interaction that your opponent can have. Now, if they are not on hand traps, then you can do a crazy combo and probably win the game. But just be aware that if they are on hand traps, if they side the Charmies, if they main the Charmies, you might have to be extra careful when playing this version. And, it's a combo version, so it's adds some choke points to hand traps. It doesn't make it weak, I think. It's just something you need to be aware of, that a lot of these cards are not game enders for the pure deck, but can be pretty brutal, at least with this, Snake Ring combo. Then, of course, the other weakness is that you do have a lot of engine requirements. Now, I hesitate to call them bricks because a lot of them can be used together. So again, you're trying to play a high engine count, I think, and you're placing your bets on all these cards being very synergistic with each other. They all have the reptile typing. They work with reptile cards. I think a lot of hands, even with cards you might call bricks, could actually be pretty strong in the right scenario. But it is still a fact that you have to play a lot of engine requirements, and sometimes you break, of course, because of it, and other times you just, don't have room for the non-engine to be able to go second. Of course, your engine is pretty strong going second, but it's just something to be aware of. You're probably looking at playing around 50 cards, I think, something around that, or at least the high 40s, just so that you don't break all the time. And unfortunately, there is a lot of starters, so it's not the end of the world. It's just something that, if you're a 40 card Andy like me, who really doesn't like playing 50 cards, then this deck might not be for you. However, if you really like all the cool synergies, all the deck building intricacies, all the cool reptile combos, all the flavor of just playing a pure reptile deck, I think this deck will be for you. And then as a small side note, I will say that Deep Area is of course something like, I just want to point this out, if you pair the Mitsurugi engine with another engine that is obviously not ritual based, then you get a little stronger against Deep Area on average, right? Because assuming you draw both engines, both your Mitsurugi and your supplementary engine, you can do some stuff, right, on the Deep Area, whereas the pure version struggles a lot more on the Deep Area, depending on the situation, of course. Sometimes you can get blown out by Deep Area even if you play with a supplementary engine. But I think that the Octoadic version is particularly nice into Deep Area since you are mainly doing a lot of link spams, right? So just wanted to say that that's another strength of the deck. All right. And that was also really long. Now we're at 30 minutes, but I think I'm just incapable of making short videos. So let's just roll with it and have a good time. That was all the Octoadic stuff I wanted to talk about. Now let's talk about, of course, you all know it, Mitsurugi Rational, right? Now, I will say I'm not a huge Rational player, so I may have a slight bias. I don't think the cards are too interesting. I think they're, I don't really like the mech aesthetic. They're kind of robots. I don't think they're super cool. I know a lot of people think they're really cool. I don't personally think they're super cool. So I might not have as detailed points on this as I did with the Octoadics, but basically I'm still gonna just do a high level overview. Of course, you're talking Detonator and you're talking King of the Feral Limbs, right? I'm just assuming that you know the basic gist of racial cards, so I'm just placing the Detonator here to show it. And then, of course, King of the Feral Limbs is the bridge. This card is really, really strong. It's a hard once per turn. Detach one material and add one reptile. Totally generic, any reptile, you can add anything you want. Of course, we also play this in Pure. Of course, we also play this in Octoadic. But it really shines here in the racial version, of course. It's all based around rank 4 Xyz, so yeah, and the idea is super simple. You just add your starter with King of the Feral Imps. Like you open racial cards and you make the King of the Feral Imps at some point and you add your Mitsurugi starter and then you just go into the full Mitsurugi combo. So kind of the same as with the Octoadics where you can bridge into the full Mitsurugi combo, but arguably a lot more resilient because this card here, you can do some funny tricks with the Twins of the Eclipse and summon it back again, use it 2 times. Like I've seen some ridiculous stuff that you can do, and of course the Mitsurugi cards doesn't really care too much about you being locked into rank 4 6Cs from the extra deck, right? So this the King of the Feral Limbs is really the entire point of the whole deck. Then the only synergy point between racial cards and Mitsurugi cards is this card here. So, like the Octoadic version, the weakness of this deck that is just immediately apparent without really thinking too much about it is, of course, that you are playing a much more combo-oriented version. The racial deck by itself you might not see as a very combo-based version, but when you combine it with the Mitsurugi, you basically can do your full racial combo, and you can just do your full Mitsurugi combo on top of that. So kind of like with Octoadics, you just have an extra engine that you can play that will just make your endboard incredibly stronger and of course also your turn a lot longer. So I will say that I do think that compared to the pure virtual, the racial Mitsurugi version is definitely a combo deck. You special summon a lot. And so compared to the Octoadic version, this version is also relatively weak against Fuvulas because of course, in the pure version, you can just draw your Mitsurugi cards. But here, if you open racial cards, you need to go into King of the Feral Limbs. You need to make an extra deck play just to be able to get to your Mitsurugi cards. And so, therefore, you, of course, play into Fullers. And you also probably want to make your detonator. You also probably want to make your dual drive. And sometimes I feel like some of these, you might even summon King of the Feral Limbs back again. Or what do I know? I'm not actually too clever about this deck, but I do know that you make a bunch of extra deck plays. And so you do play into Fuvelas. Of course, also ice summons from deck as well. And so on. And then instead of being weak to meows as much, you open yourself up here for a pretty big weakness on Perulia, right? Of course, it's racial, it's weak to Perulia, and playing the Mitsurugi card doesn't really change that. Of course, you can just be lucky and not open any of the racial cards, and then you just play pure Mitsurugi. But then you, of course, also have fewer Mitsurugi cards, so your Mitsurugi hand might not be able to play through as many interruptions. And so yeah, so you are just the same with Octoadics. You are opening yourself up to Jammies this time. Instead of Fullers Meows, you're opening yourself up to Fullers Perulia, right? And then I will say I think the racial cards are a lot more resilient to hand traps, but I will just say that cards like Imperm and Effect Veiler and Ghost Ogre could still be problems here. Like, mainly in the sense that the pure Mitsurugi deck actually plays around these Veiler and Imperm quite well. There's sometimes we don't even need to normal summon, but when we do, often we can dodge with prayers. Of course, the racial cards are not reptiles. You can't use prayers to dodge. And of course, Ghost Ogre is great against dual drive as well, right? So you don't open yourself up to too many choke points compared to Octoadic, but I still think you have more choke points than you have with the pure version. And then there's this, which I think is maybe a bit controversial, but I'm also gonna say Drawl here for kind of the same reason as with Octoadic. Of course, Drawl is also really good against the pure version, so take this with a grain of salt. But the argument I've heard is that the racial Mitsurugi version is better into Drawl, because if you start with the racial, and there's no reason not to start with your racials, you can at least make a detonator if under draw, right? You just go X'd, or you summon racial as another racial, yada yada. You summon that, then they draw you, and then you make a detonator, and that is like better than nothing, right? Detonator pass is pretty strong actually, so it's a lot better than compared to the Octoadic version where we just add Daybreak. And we can maybe make some extra deck plays, but I think detonator is probably better than most extra deck plays you could do, maybe besides the alien luck. But yeah, that's not quite the point. The point is just that when you're playing pure, you're a lot more likely to already have opened the Mitsurugi cards you need to combo, and so playing fewer Mitsurugi cards in your deck does come with the weakness in that you will not open them quite as often, right? And it's the point, right? Because you don't need to open them as often, because you can just search them with King of the Feral Limb, right? That's the whole idea. Same with Octoadics. But of course, if you already have what you need in your hand, then Drawl doesn't hurt too much. And also, Prayers, for example, is a very, very, very strong tool against Drawl. And having Prayers and be able to activate it in your draw phase, and then tributing a reptile to get an additional search, you can get up to 3 searches with the Prayers in your draw step if you open a lot of Mitsurugi cards. Average is maybe only 2 searches, but that's still very good to get 2 searches off before you even enter the main phase, right? That's almost a guarantee that you will get 3 searches during that turn. And with the racial cards, obviously you are playing a lot fewer main deck reptiles. You're playing the racial cards instead. And so the times that you open prayers along with a reptile is just less. You cannot really use prayers with the Mitsurugi cards. And so even though you might say that going to main and summoning X and making a detonator is still very strong, that could have maybe been a lot stronger if that X was a Mitsurugi card instead and you had the prayers. Of course, you want always open prayers, so I'm not saying that the pure deck is somehow really good against draw. I mean, draw is the worst thing against our deck. But I'm just challenging the idea that Raishal Mitsurugi is better into draw. Because you might be making a detonator a lot more often on the draw, but that's pretty much it, right? If you have a bunch of Mitsurugi cards in your hand that don't fit together, you're just passing on the detonator and a bunch of Mitsurugi cards in your hand that you can't use, and you're probably going to lose that game, right? And whereas the pure version, you might be able to actually use those Mitsurugi cards in your hand to play and make something else. Might not be as strong as the detonator, but I'm just putting it out there, challenging the idea a bit that the Raishal Mitsurugi version is better against draw. I don't know if that is absolutely true. I don't have any definitive proofs, but I personally lean towards draw being a bit better against the Raishal Mitsurugi deck than the pure. But yeah, but otherwise, of course, like I mentioned, with just want to put it out there. Of course, Raishal, I think you can still, of course, get really hurt by deep area. Like if you only open Raishal plays and you don't have any of your Mitsurugi 2-card combos, you're gonna get punished by deep area as well, right? You're still playing Raishal, so they can still just call Xyz if you don't have the Mitsurugi combos. Like Mitsurugi has a lot of 2-card combos. If you open like X plus Ritual plus Aramasa, right? You have to not that play would actually work, but maybe you open like X plus Aramasa plus like Purification or something like that. No, X plus Ritual plus Purification, right? You have a brick in one of your 3 engine cards. That is still really weak into deep area, but you still I think have a lot more to do against deep area, of course, since you are playing a supplementary engine, which is a different type than Mitsurugi in terms of boss monsters, right? So want to throw that out there as a strength. And then I also want to add a weakness that I forgot about, but it's actually, I think, pretty relevant. And that is, of course, the Exodecade. Of course, you are playing Raishal Mitsurugi, so getting your detonator banished by a unicorn or a ghost reaper might not be the end of the world if you have some other place, right? But you can also get hit on the King of the Fell Limbs with the Ghost Reaper, right? Even though you play 2 King of the Fell Limbs, the Ghost Reaper banishes all. And going second, they can take your detonator on their own turn, and then your duo drive something else on their turn. It's not like these cards are just completely breaks your deck like they do to Pure Raishal Malice or some Fiendsmith Pure or something like that. But it still kind of is a weakness that the pure deck does not have, right? So even though you might still be able to play just fine without your detonator, it is still just something now you can't make a detonator, right? So it is just a weakness that you didn't have before. So if people are playing these cards, I don't know how popular they will be, but I've seen a lot of talk about them. It's something that the Mitsurugi deck just does not care about at all. And when you then play Raishals, you maybe, could get burnt by this. So just wanted to put these out there. And I think that finally, just talking about some strength as well, apart from being stronger against deep area, I will say, I've been talking about all these weaknesses. I will say the Raishal cards are obviously very strong, X is a crazy card, even though Bonfire got limited and X got semi-limited, right? So you have fewer ways to start. It's still really, really strong. The Ritual cards are really, really strong. And there's no, like, apart from this, what I've outlined here, there's no, like, crazy reason not to play the Rituals, right? So I do think that the Rise of Mitsurugi might be the most competitive version of Mitsurugi. Because it was already pretty good, maybe not tier 1, but decently strong before Alliance Insight, and I don't think the bans did too much, and then to hurt the deck. And now there's none of the new Mitsurugi cards that really prevent you from playing the Rituals, except I guess of course the Wosu, right? Let me just find it. This card right here. So the Wosu is of course the reptile Raigeki, or not Raigeki, the kaiju that summons itself on your own side. So not really a kaiju, but you can inherent summon it by tributing a reptile monster from your hand and one of your opponent's monsters. So it's kind of like a kaiju in the sense that it just outs something without even starting a chain. This card, of course, locks you out of non-reptiles, even also in your main deck. So your extra deck and main deck you just cannot activate effects of non-reptile monsters for the rest of the turn. Of course, you can just do your rational plays beforehand, but we all know that the strength of kaijus is that you can just do it as your first action to remove their strongest interruptions, their on-negate, without them being able to trade efficiently with it. So yes, you can play your rational cards before playing this, but most of the times it won't be optimal to do that, in terms of you probably want to start off with this in a lot of scenarios. This card is currently being debated as whether or not it's even good. In my playtesting, it has been very strong. So again, I don't feel super confident in my sort of Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge. I don't have any strong results. So you should take what I say with a grain of salt. In my experience, this has been very, very good. And so I do view not being able to play Wosu as a real weakness to the Raichu Mitsurugi deck. I mean, I don't think you would play Wosu. Of course, you do get X, which is also a really good board breaker, right? So I'm not saying that, this is a deal breaker and you shouldn't play Raichu Mitsurugi because you can't play Wosu. I'm just highlighting it that this probably not a card you can play in this version, at least not up efficiently, right? And that might be depending on how good this card turns out to be. Maybe some more stronger players than me will use it and it turn out to be really strong. And in that case, I think it's like a real downside to this deck that you can't play it. Maybe it's just not needed at all, and the deck just does just fine without it. And so this downside is not really that big. I just wanted to point it out that there is some downside to not playing pure reptiles, right? And of course, in the Arctic version, you can play Wosu just fine, for the most part. So yeah, I think that was, oh my god, it's 50 minutes now and I haven't even gotten to talk about the pure version. That is pretty bad, but who cares? I'm having fun. Let's just move on. I think that this might probably be the best version of the deck. Like, just putting it out there, I think it's really strong. I don't think there's a lot of downsides to playing Terrestrials, although I hope that I actually did a good job of showing that there are actually some downsides to it. It's not just all upside compared to the pure version, which I know some people are saying that there is legit no reason to play the pure version. and I do think that that is not correct. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy playing Raicho Mitsurugi if you just want to play the strongest version. I think it's very easy to see why it's strong. Raicho Mitsurugi was strong before, now it's even stronger. You don't need a lot of good arguments to convince people to play that. I feel like it will also be the most played version, maybe apart from the budget. But whereas the pure version and the Octoadic version still have a lot to prove, so I think people will be more skeptical about those versions, just because there's no really good, strong results with any of the pure Octoadic. Of course, Octoadic has tops and regionals, but the pure version has absolutely no results, of course. So yeah, I do think that you should be a bit careful, because I think people are pretty biased around the Raicho Mitsurugi version, because it's already have, as I just said, already have strong results. I don't think you should give up on considering the other two versions completely, but also it shouldn't not be a surprise if the Raicho Mitsurugi turns out to be the strongest version of them. Yeah, but now, after 51 minutes, I guess I will move on to the pure deck, which is what I fell in love with. And I think the pure deck is so incredibly cool, and it's pretty strong as well, I think. I've been playing against my friends a lot. I've been playing at a remote locals where proxies were allowed, and it was post Alliance Inside 2 days ago, and I went undefeated. So the deck is strong. I can tell you that much. The deck is strong. Might not be as strong as Raicho Mitsurugi, but we're just gonna stop talking about Raichos right now, because this is about snakes. This is about reptiles. It's not about robots. It's about the reptile archetype right now. And so, what are we doing in the pure version, right? There's a lot to get into. I think maybe I should just start with giving my current deck profile, and then we can get into some combos, because the way the pace is going right now, I feel like this is gonna be a 2-hour video if I don't get started on the deck profile right now. So let's just get started on the deck profile. And so right now I'm playing 41, but that's primarily because I have been testing Magatama, and I'm not sure as well yet if I'm going to play it or not, but I'm leaning towards playing it. And so I need to find one card to cut, because I do think that, first of all, I will just say I think 40 is, or just, 41, 42, who cares, right? But 40 is, around that point, is probably the correct number for the pure build, because you just want to see your status. You just want to see prayers, and Mitsurugi Ritual. You want to see prayers every single game. It's by far the best card to have in your deck. It lets you play around draw, it lets you play around hand traps, it lets you dodge. It's great going second as well. You want to maximize your chance of seeing prayers, and you also want to maximize your chance of just drawing the ritual, drawing the ritual monsters, drawing all your status. I think that playing 40 in the pure version is the best, although of course sometimes it's hard to get to 40 and you don't know what to cut. So if you're at 41 like I am, that's completely fine. I think somewhere out there in the platonic ideal universe, there is a Mitsurugi pure version that is exactly 40 card and is the best possible. And yeah, I think the best possible version will be exactly 40, but may not be that easy to find. So let me just go over our Mitsurugi monsters. I have not gotten them sorted, so let me just sort them real quick. There's some different ways we could split this into. I'm just going over the quote-unquote engine part right now. And then I'm going over the more non-engine parts of it later. And so, of course, we start out with 3, let me see, I put them up here. 3 Aramasa. This is just the, well, I assume you know a little bit about the new cards, but if you don't know, the Habakiri, the new ritual monster, is the 1-card combo, and you don't need the normal, so the normal summon, so you can just summon normal summon Aramasa and you can get the Habakiri, and that's also your 1-card combo. So Aramasa is just like Habakiri, a 1-card starter. So you just play 3, right? You just want to... sometimes you don't even need a normal summon, honestly, in this deck, but if you have one, this is the one you want the most of the time. And then 2 copies of Sachi. This is not a 1-card combo. At least it's not a very great one, because if you just open this, you're forced to add prayers, and then you can add Habakiri, and then you would think that that would be, now you have Habakiri, now you have a 1-card combo, but you needed the prayers to tribute the Habakiri, and now you've already used it, and so it's not 1-card combo. So that's why I'm only playing 2. It's still pretty nice in a lot of cases as an extender, and it like if you have like basically any other Mitsurugi card, it works really well. So that's why I'm playing 2. Also, I just want to up the numbers of Mitsurugi monsters in the deck, because you want to have enough to use your ritual to tribute from the deck. So you want to have enough monsters in your deck. You want to be able to search the Saji sometimes, even though you already have it. Just so, you want to, if you draw this, also be able to tribute it from the deck a lot of the times. It's just nice to have an extra copy for the resource game. It also is honestly a great card to open with any other. It's just not a 1-card starter, right? So that's why I'm not playing 3. Still playing 2, still very strong. And then the last of the small ones is the Kusanagi. And this card is one of the most important cards in the deck. It doesn't do anything by itself, right? So it's even worse than Saji in the sense that if you just draw this, it does literally nothing. It is kind of a brick, to be honest. Of course, it can work really nicely if you draw other Mitsurugi cards. That's the whole idea of playing Pure, is that you mitigate the weaknesses of your engine requirement cards or your brick by just having a bunch of Mitsurugi cards. You just max out on the Mitsurugi cards and you're just more likely to have great combinations. Of course, this deck can still brick. I'm not saying it's immune to bricks, but that's the whole idea. But of course, Kusanagi is the part of you. Not only part of your combo in that you tribute it from the deck and you add back your ritual to be able to use the ritual again, the ritual summon again. It's also paramount for the grind game. And this deck is a mid-range deck. It's a grind deck. You are not beating anyone with your turn 1 board unless you just completely went full combo. This is not a turn 1 FTK deck at all. You will have to grind and you will have to sort of win the attrition war, and Kusanagi is just completely necessary for that. It adds back from both graveyard and banish, and the add back from banish is just amazing. If your Amino gets bestial, you can add it back. If your other stuff gets bestial, you can add it back with Kusanagi. Of course, the only thing is that if Kusanagi gets banished, you cannot get it back. And so I was actually against a Malice player and the remote locals who did bestial my Kusanagi, and I think that was a really smart choice. I still ended up winning that game, but I think that is a valid choice to do, because this deck is trying to grind it out, and if you don't have your Kusanagi, you might just lose because of it in the long run, and that's how important the Kusanagi is. So never ever cutting this card, but of course always just playing one. And then we have actually not having the third copy. Let me see. There it is. Then of course we have 3 Habakiri, right? And of course this is proxy art, but yeah, this is the 1-card combo. It's completely ridiculous card. It just starts you off. It doesn't even require a normal summon. It's of course a once per duel effect, so the value of this card gets a little bit weaker over the turns of the game. Also, you know, it's not very strong on the board. It just reduces your opponent's attack by 800. Doesn't really do too much. Not even that strong itself, only clocking in at 2400 attack. Doesn't have high defense either, but you know, it has the same clause as Amino and Futsu. When you tribute it, you can search a Mitsurugi card and you can summon it back if it was properly summoned. That's all we really care about. You will tribute this in your combo. You can just, this is just a bridge into all your other cards basically, and then you can summon it to go for game, something like that, attack over some monsters. It's not completely useless on the board, but let's just say if you're summoning Habakiri to the board, you're probably in a pretty good position. And then finally we have, of course, the main boss monsters. I'm playing 2 Amino and 1 Futsu. And I think 2 Amino is pretty common, but I think now, especially in Raisho Mitsurugi, you are probably cutting. You're almost definitely cutting the second Amino just to fit in the Raisho cards. In Pure, I still want to play 2. It is debatable. You might be able to cut 1. I just think from playing the game, having the second one is really good. Of course, if your Amino gets bestialed, you can get it back to your hand with Kusanagi. So it's not like playing 1 is completely off the table. But a lot of the times when you go first, your Amino gets bestialed, you have already used your Kusanagi to add back the ritual, right? And so unless you have a second Amino in your deck, you just can't end on the Amino, right? And then you'd have to do some very convoluted setup with, you know, Makatama, the new quick play, can quick ritual summon on your opponent's turn, so you'd have to do some setup with that, and you might be able to do that. It's just much more convoluted. Of course, with the new support, we can now ritual summon 3 times in a turn. 2 times with the ritual, Mitsurugi ritual, and 1 time with the Mitsurugi mirror. So if you, you know, summon Futsu, summon Amino, your Amino gets bestialed, you can still just, if you have a second Amino, can't just use your third ritual summon to make the Amino again. And that is actually very relevant. I also think that it's very relevant to have a second copy in your decks, just that when turn comes back to you, you can just go Mitsurugi ritual and just summon the Amino straight from your deck. It doesn't matter if they have a bestial or not. You just have the second copy anyway, so there was nothing they could really do. And in that sense, I really think it helps to in the resource game, in the grind game. So that's why I'm playing 2. Of course, it is kind of a brick, you know, and that's why I think something like Raisho Mitsurugi will only play 1. But the idea, again, restating this, the idea is that we are maxing out on Mitsurugi cards that synergize with each other. As long as we have a prayer in our hand, as long as we have a ritual, Mitsurugi ritual in our hand, we can make use of that Amino in our hand, right? So, of course, by itself, doesn't do anything, it's a brick, but we try to maximize on cards that synergize and sort of unbrick this situation. And you know, a lot of times it's nice to just hard draw the Amino if you can get to the ritual. You just skip 1 step of your combo so that you are stronger into interruptions, because if they try to prevent you from getting to the Amino, well, jokes on them, you already had it in your hand. And so this, of course, sometimes it's a brick, a lot of times it's not a brick though. So yeah, and then of course the Futsu. Of course, the Futsu is super important. This is what we end on. We just end on a Futsu. That's it. Maybe sometimes an IP as well, but Futsu is just the strongest card. This is the card that makes sure we don't die. on our opponent's turn, because we keep summoning back these small guys and they just gain us advantage. Like we search like of Aramasa, Saji and Kusanagi at back, we get like +3 during our opponent's turn, set up 3 walls. This one is 3400 defense, so it's very hard to, it's almost impossible to kill us unless they out the Futsu. It's very hard to out the Futsu because we can dodge with all sorts of cards and it summons itself back and what do I know. So this is the shield card. This is just a card that says, no, you're not gonna kill me on one turn. We're gonna play this out. We're gonna play this grind game, and this is where our deck thrives, right? Because the basic idea is that Amino's negate becomes stronger and stronger the longer game goes. The more simplified game state we get to, the less card our opponent has in their hand. The Amino's negate just converges to an Omni negate, right? A once per turn Omni negate. If your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand, this is just an Omni negate, right? And so we want to reach that state. When we reach the state where our opponent is out of cards, and we have a once per turn Omni negate, once per turn Regeki, on our turn, on their turn, we just Omni, Regeki every single turn, even on their own turn. We just win the game, right? There's nothing they can do. So the entire goal of Pure is to bring the game to that state, that simplified state where our Mitsurugi cards are just, the Amino is just completely unbeatable. And so that is also why I really like the Pure deck, because I think that playing as a mid-range deck, playing this grindy version of the deck instead of a combo-oriented deck, it plays more into the strength of the Mitsurugi cards themselves. And they are really good at turning the game into a grind game, and they are really good at winning in the grind game. So this is all about that. Anyway, then I guess for some engine spells, let me just find, where did I put my deck? Of course, we are playing... Oh, actually, let me just do a quick bathroom break. All right, I'm back. Just one thing I got reminded of is that this whole thing with Amino, where you just eat up their card every turn, you get to this simplified game state, is kind of reminds me of a term from Magic that is called having your opponent in the abyss, or abyss locking your opponent. It's the very basic scenario where you have a strong monster and you just keep attacking them, and they have nothing, and every monster they draw, they will have to put down as a blocker for your monster. So effectively, they just can't do anything because they lose their card they draw for turn every turn, and you just eventually kill them. And that's kind of the same thing with this deck, is that every card they draw will just be eaten up by the Amino negate. And so you just put them in this stranglehold, basically. That's the whole idea. And I think it's a really cool idea from a sort of gameplay perspective. But yeah, so this is our basic lineup of our engine monsters. And then, of course, we do have three of the prayers and three of the rituals as well. So prayers is, I have talked a bit about it before, it's the ridiculous card. It's the one that lets us play around draw, it summons, it adds, it's crazy as an extender, or even sometimes if you have other Mitsurugi cards, it can also be a play starter. You can have it on, it's great to have on your end board as well, just set face down, because now your Futsu is just way harder to out, and even if they out it, you can still summon back the Amino with the prayers. It gives you a ton of insulation against all sorts of interruptions they might have when they go second. You know, they Regeki you, okay, sure, you know, activate prayers, tribute Futsu. You know, you can also just let them Regeki you and then just say, okay, summon back Futsu after. You can, you know, if they try to droplet and they don't send a spell, you can just say, okay, I'm just gonna dodge. if they droplet when you go for the Amino Rageki, right? It's strong going first, it's strong going second, it's an endboard piece, it's a follow-up piece as well. You're always searching this, you know, Kusanagi, summoned by Futsu on your opponent's turn, you add back the prayers to your hand. Now you just instantly, even if you're out everything you have, even if they deal with the Amino, you can just boop, summon it right back from the graveyard. It is a quick play Monster Reborn and also a Rhoda. So quick play Monster Reborn plus Rhoda plus being able to dodge things. It's absolutely insane. It's by far the best card in the deck. It's the reason, I think, in my opinion, why you would want to play 40, because you just want to see this card. Every single card. The only problem with this card is that you sometimes run out because you can only play 3. But I guess that's where Kusanagi comes in. And then, of course, all the other busted card in the deck is Mitsurugi Ritual. Yeah, we don't need to talk too much about this card. It's completely insane. You can activate it. It's not even hard once per turn. It's twice per turn. You can activate it both its modes once per turn. So, and with the new mirror, right? I will just say right now, it's not the end of the world if they ash this. If you go summon from deck, they ash this. Okay, sure. I'll find another way to get to my ritual, and I use mirror to summon that, right? If you're missing the Futsu, if you're missing the Amino, get that card in rotation and use the mirror to summon it. If they impulse this, right, it's also most of the time completely fine, because again, we only need to have to ritual summon 2 times, and we have 3 ways of ritual summoning, right? Even in this disaster scenario where they have Impulse and Ash, we can still get the Amino on the field. So the idea also, I guess, with the pure deck is that you become more resilient to these hand traps, where it's, of course, it's strong when they Impulse this, when they Ash this. It's not a weak play, right? But sometimes it just doesn't even matter. And other times you can get by even still, right? It's very hard to prevent the pure version from ritual summoning Amino. And it's also very hard to prevent them from the pure version for summon Amino and Futsu. Can be done, but they are still going neg on their hand traps, and we have a bunch of ways to play even still. Even if they somehow, if they can't do this, but imagine they could negate all your 3 ritual summons, negate both modes on the ritual and also your mirror. You can still set up the Magatama to ritual summon on their turn. It's just a, of course, a make-believe scenario, because there is no combination of hand traps where they could negate all 3 ritual summons. Not as far as I know, at least. But okay, maybe if they bestial your ritual when you try to mirror, for example, in that scenario, there are still ways out of it. It's just ritual. You just always want to open, always want to see this. This is the card you search all the time. So hard opening it is just good. So we just play 3 again, 40 cards. It just makes sure we draw this all the time. It's also very strong going second, of course. Strong if you open it with any of these rituals, you can just immediately activate it. Of course, strongest if you open it with Amino. Very strong play, Amino ritual. Of course, you have Amino in hand, you have ritual in hand. That's what you Mitsurugi Ritual in hand. That's the 2-card combination, right? We already know it from even before Alliance Insight. That's what you're trying to get to. Obviously, a lot easier to get to if you're just playing 3 copies. So yeah. And then, of course, with the new mirror, ritual spell actually naming all the ritual monsters, that means that there's a certain card that we can now play, and that card is, of course, pre-prep. It's very simple. You add the mirror, and you add one of the rituals, and you're good to go. Of course, if this is your only starter, you just add the Hypercuria and you go full combo. Actually, the combo is even stronger when you also have the mirror, because you can ritual summon 3 times, and that will give you an extra body. Does play a bit more into Nibiru, right? But if you want to go full wombo, the pre-prep is the strongest 1-card starter in the deck. Of course, you don't need to. You can also just the nice thing about this is that you can just get Amino or Futsu if you already have the Habakiri. So it's not even like it's redundant to draw Habakiri plus pre-prep. That's still completely fine. Actually, it's strong because now you can just add the Amino plus the mirror, and then even if you get drawled, you have mirror in your hand. You can just ritual summon Amino still, right? So yeah, no real downside to pre-prep. And then the last sort of starter engine card I am playing, it's not really a Mitsurugi card, but I think you might be able to guess what it is. It's Nadir Servant. So I count this as an engine card because it really just is. You go Nadir Servant, you send either Vergit or Garura, you add the Maximus, summon Maximus, and you send the Herald, right? And Herald can add any ritual monster, any ritual spell. So you can just go Habakiri, and that's your combo. If you already have Habakiri, you can add one of the ritual monsters that you need to summon. Or if you already have those, you can just add the ritual spell. You can even also add Mitsurugi Mirror as well, if you. So it gets you everything you need. Of course, it locks you out of the extra deck, so that is a downside. But let me tell you, we don't really use our extra deck that much. It's definitely nice to make an IP Masquerina or something like that, but we rarely do more than that. But I will get into that when we talk about the extra deck. And of course, this does make it so that I wouldn't play Dominus Impulse, because both Maximus and Herald of the Arclight are light monsters. So if we're on Impulse, then Nadir Servant just becomes useless. And so I think you have to make a choice here. Do you play Impulse? Do you want to play Nadir Servant? Impulse is definitely very strong, and we can play it in the pure vision because all our monsters are dark. But I do think that Nadir Servant is maybe equally strong because it is, of course, also pretty good going second. You can send Entish or Aggregator. You can threaten and interrupt with the Maximus. So it's also kind of a board breaker. So it's just this card that is like a board breaker and finds you all the engine you need and forces out their interruptions. And so it's just I think that this is stronger than Impulse, but I might be wrong. I'm definitely open to feedback on this, but I think Nadir Servant is very, very strong in this deck, and is also just an extra starter, right? So if we count the Nadir Servants and the pre-preps and the Habakiri and the Amasa, we had 12 starters. Of course, Prayers can also do something on its own. It's not completely useless, but I'm not counting as a starter right now. So 12 starters just with this, but a lot of 2-card combinations, right? A ton of 2-card combinations. Ritual plus any of the non-starters is still combo. Prayers plus any of the non-starters are still combo. Yeah, so 24 here, cards here. And then there is, of course, some other cards that I'm playing. Notably, let me just maybe push these a bit up. So you can see these cards here, which are more like engine requirements. You can also see Kusanagi as an engine requirement, I guess. But we, of course, play the mirror. This is, of course, so that we can play pre-prep, but I will say I would probably play this card even if there was no pre-prep, because, again, like I said before, being able to ritual summon 3 times instead of just 2 lets us play through interruptions on our ritual. So I would definitely play mirror, even if I didn't play pre-prep. And then, of course, we also play the Great Purification. Since we're playing pure, our end board is not that crazy, right? I still think it's pretty good, but it's nothing compared to Actoadic Mitsurugi. It's nothing compared to Ritual Mitsurugi. Okay, our end board is a lot weaker than either of those decks. So I think the Great Purification is definitely something we need
to just have a stronger input. And also, you know, it's an Omni, it negates and destroys. You can even use it to dodge in the right scenarios. It of course has a really good graveyard effect where you can just banish it and you can just summon anything reptile back from your graveyard and tribute a monster you control. So you can just get back Amino, and they need to be aware of this. Even if they negate your prayers on your follow-up turn, even if they deal with your Futsu, even if they negate the ritual, well, guess what? The Amino still comes back because of Great Purification. Or maybe just Futsu comes back. You lead off summoning Futsu back. Now all their summons, if you're playing against a deck that summons a lot, will just trigger all your stuff to come back. And yeah, so definitely playing Purification. Then there is also, of course, the worst card in the deck, Maximus. So, of course, Nadir Servant does come with a cost in that this terrible, terrible card we never want to see in our hand. There is like some ways to, with Wosu, we can, you know, if Wosu gets tributed, you can discard a card to add it back. So there is some way to get Maximus into the graveyard so that you can add it. Nadir Servant can also add from the graveyard. So if you open Nadir Servant plus Maximus, there is a way to make it activatable, but it's not great. It's really good, not great. This is the worst brick in our deck. It's like a Garnet type brick where it's not even that you could search it anyway, so it's not efficient to draw it. It's more than that. It makes it so that we cannot activate Nadir Servant as long as we have it in our hand. This is a very strong reason to consider playing Dominus Impulse over Nadir Servant, because then you just have one less brick, and when we are playing just 40 cards, bricks do matter a lot. So yeah, Nadir Servant definitely comes with a downside. This is the Dogmatic Maximus is the worst card in the deck by far. But of course we are also getting 3 extra starters, and of course board breakers as well. So the payoff is great, but the cost is also pretty massive. So yeah, that's basically that is basically the 3 sort of engine requirements. And I do also count Kusanagi because that card also doesn't really do too much itself. So you could say 4 cards here that are not necessarily very great to draw. Of course, Great Purification is pretty good when you go first, because then you don't even have to show it to your opponent. You could search something else instead, of course, if you're able to play, but of course it does not help you play. And that's the thing with all these. They do not really help you play on their own. So yeah. And then finally, I'm just playing a Pot of Prosperity. It's pretty obvious. We don't really need our extra deck too much. And then also a Call by the Grave. Just really just because of draw, actually. So yeah, that's 24 in these 2 rows, and then 5, so that's 29 cards, which seems like a lot of engine, right? But I will say that Pot of Prosperity and Nadir Servant, of course, also can just work as non-engine, right? Nadir Servant can just be a board breaker, and Pot of Prosperity you can just use it to find some non-engine instead. So if we subtract these 2, if we count them as non-engine, then, you know, we are at 25 engine. And also called by, of course, also maybe sometimes against some decks can be used as non-engine as well. So floating around 24 engine to 29 engine, depending on how you want to look at it. Which is a lot. It's a lot, right? But I think this engine is very strong. We are just trying to open 2-card combinations, 3-card combinations. The Mitsurugi engine is great at going second, so I'm not too nervous about this high engine count. And of course, this deck, I guess I can spoil it now, is a board breaker version. There's a different world where you don't play the Nadir Servant, you play Impulse instead, and you go for a hand trap version. haven't tested too much with that. I have tested a little bit with it. Don't think it's as strong because I think Nadir Servant being both a starter and a non-engine, I think the synergy is just too high not to play it, or rather to play Impulse over it. But there is of course also this hand trap version of the deck where you probably play a little more non-engine, just because in hand traps you often want to open at least 2, right? In this version we are fine with just opening 1 board breaker and then just the rest engine. Yeah, so you can definitely go lower on the engine. You could cut the second Saji, you can cut the Amino. You can, I guess, take out the Nadir Servants and put in Impulses instead, and then you'd have more non-engine, but of course also fewer status. And that's not the route I've gone with right now, but I let me know if you have success with it, because I do think it should be a fully viable way to play as well. Maybe it's more like the Raishil version, where you do get, when you play Raishil, you do get a lot of extra status in form of, just a bunch of Raishils that can get to Habaki in terms of King of the Fell Limbs. So maybe in that version, you're fine with playing few engine. Although I don't really know how you could play less engine when you have to fit in all the Mitsurugi card and Rush card. I'm yapping right now. In terms of the going second cards, I just want to start out with, of course, Wusu, Makatama, and Talents. So these are sort of in the line between going second and going first cards. But I've just put them here because I think they're more relevant going second. Of course, Talents is the Saki, they draw you look at their hand, take out their only starter, yada yada. Makatama is, if you don't know, you tribute a reptile monster and target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy it. Or you can quick ritual and you have to tribute monsters on your field to do it. Notably, you can tribute a non-reptile monster, so that's one of the, I guess, very few use cases of Maximus. This is basically just an enemy controller, but instead of taking control of something, you pop. So I think it's like debatably worse, debatably a bit better. The thing is that Mitsurugi cards by themselves, like Amino and Wozu, they're really good at dealing with monsters, right? Like Raigeki plus Kaiju. Just very, very good going second ways to deal with monsters. But spells and traps, not so much. Like if they have a floodgate, if they have some really annoying spell card or trap card set in their back row, the Mitsurugi engine can struggle with that. And so that's why I like Makatama, because it just pops. It's not like flashy, but it does deal with any spell trap that you don't want them to have. And then the last reason is that I did say that I was currently undecided on whether I want not to play it, but I want to say I have been having a lot of success with it, because it is also a pretty nice thing to be able to set when you go first. Just in the whole sense that our board is not super strong, so just having this as an extra interruption when you go first. You can obviously not always, you don't have the privilege to search it if you get interrupted a lot. But sometimes if you just open a ton of engine and you just need something to search, you already have access to everything else. The chain of command goes like, the priority, I guess, goes like you want the Great Purification, you want the prayers, and then if you can search something else, because this deck does search a lot, so it's not even that unlikely that you be able to search for a third endboard piece. You can search the Makatama, and it's actually pretty good, right? It's just a pop on their turn, and so I do see it kind of like an enemy controller that is searchable. Maybe a little worse, maybe sometimes a little bit better, because one of the ways you can play around Deep Area is that you can set up the Makatama and some monsters on the field and your Amino in hand, and so then you can pass the turn, and then you can summon Amino on your opponent's turn. And that is, not ideal, but if you get Deep Area, it is nice to have a plan, something you can actually do to get out of the situation. you just need to, even I played against my friend who just played Labyrinth with D barriers. I asked him to do it, so it's my own fault. But where he just looped D barrier, if you can just properly summon Amino one time, you are good to go, because you can then get it back every time with prayers. So you just need to get the Amino through one time, and this being a quick effect and just being really sneaky can help you do that. But that's like, I guess, a very niche scenario. Just know that I've had some good experiences with this card. I do think that it is probably worth playing. I just need to find out what to cut. That's pretty much it. Also, just note, this card, unlike all the other Mitsurugi cards, basically cannot tribute monsters in your hand. Just, I repeat, cannot tribute monsters in your hand. You have to tribute monsters on the field. It's a notable downside. And then also, it cannot be used in battle. It cannot be used in a battle phase. That is another downside to it. So just need to be aware of it. It's definitely not the strongest card in the world. I do think the fact that it's searchable, and it is pretty okay going second, because it can hit back row, can hit spell traps. That is something our engine is not super good at. I do think it is worth playing. And then Wozu, I think this card is pretty strong, actually. It has been very good for mine every single game. So much that I'm even maining it, and you might be like, oh, that's terrible to main it because it doesn't do anything going first. You're partially right about that, in the sense that, of course, it's a brick, right? It doesn't do anything. So it's terrible to draw. But so are a lot of going second options, right? When you play board breakers, you have some cards that are just, you playing board breakers. And, a bunch of them, you can maybe set like Droplet and stuff like that. Then there's other like Dark Ruler, Evenly. It doesn't do anything going first. And I just didn't have space in the side deck. And another thing is that I feel like I have actually played some games where I decided not to start this out going first, and you might be looking at me going like, that's completely insane. And kinda is, kinda not. Let me just break it down for you. So this, of course, it does not do anything in your hand, but I will say that you can still if you are able to play, you can still tribute this card for your Mitsurugi ritual. So it's not unusable going first. You can tribute this card, and or you can summon it with prayers, right? So it does function, have some use going first if you're able to play. I'm not saying that makes this card great to draw, but I'm just saying it's not as completely unusable as people are saying. It's kind of similar to Kusanagi or something like that. And then the main reason I like this card going first even is that basically the way this deck works, I've already talked about it a bunch. You're basically just trying to draw out the game and to simplify the game state. You're not trying to win on your first turn. You're not trying to create an FTK end board. You are basically slowly trying to out advantage them. And if you played this deck, you know that during your opponent's turn, when you have your Futsu, and every time they summon, you get to summon one of your small Mitsurugis back from the graveyard, and they all search, and your prayers will also search. So you get like upwards of, I'm not even joking, like 4 searches, 5 searches, because your Futsu and your Amino, when you tribute those, they also search. Get like 3 to 5 searches or add-backs with Kusanagi, if you also count that, during your opponent's turn. And so the game plan is not necessarily to, make them not able to play. It's to create a really strong turn 3. When the turn gets back to you and you have legit 5 cards you've added during your opponent's turn, you have all those in your hand, that's really strong. And so this, you can probably see where I'm going with this. This is a card you add during your opponent's turn, so that when it comes around to you, you can just kaiju whatever they set up, right? If they set up a detonator, it's gone. If they set up anything, any monster, this literally deals with almost any monster, right? Of course, if the detonator has an Twins of the Eclipse attached, it doesn't do that. But you know, it's harder for them to make these boards when they go second. They have to break your board as well, right? So they have to break your board, and they probably cannot kill you because you have Futsu that just spams defenders and has a massive defense stat. And so they probably can't kill you, and they have to think about, okay, what do I set up during my turn so that I can close out this game? And they probably will make some extra deck monster or some boss monster. And if you just add this, it's basically just like you just seal the deal a lot of the times. On the turn comes back to you, you just erase whatever they spent their last resources setting up, and you can just go for game, or you can even just chill, right? Just relax and tribute this, add it back to your hand again, set up the purification again, set up Futsu again, have the Amino again, maybe make an extra deck play, push for some damage, set the prayers, set the Magatama if you don't need them, and then just pass to that turn. You're exactly in the same situation again, except like your end board is exactly the same, except now they have even fewer resources. The Amino negates a bit stronger statistically at this point, and you just outgrind them. And I do think that this card, just being able to search this card on your opponent's turn, just makes it very, very, very strong. So that's why I'm currently maining it. Yes, it does suck to draw. It can be used sometimes, but yes, it is not super good. But I hope at least maybe I didn't convince you about maining this card, but maybe I hope I showed you what use this card can have going first. Anyway, for the rest of the non-engine, I'm basically not playing super fancy cards. Let me just show you. I'm playing 3 enemy controller. I will say that if I'm going down to 40, which I am, because I believe 40 is the best number, I think one of the enemy controllers is the right thing to cut. It has been the least efficient card for me in the deck. It is still pretty strong though. Like, you know, you probably know this idea. People have been playing enemy controller in Mitsurugi before Alliance Inside. It's just as good right now, even better. Just summon out, you summon out the Amino, they go like, no, you can't Raigeki my board. They like imperm your Amino, you just go enemy controller, take your strongest monster, Raigeki your rest of your board anyway, and yeah. You can also just normal summon an Aramasa just to test out the waters. And yeah, so the idea is pretty straightforward. You can dodge. It's primarily dodging, right? You can also trigger your tribute triggers, and you can take their monster. Not very complicated card. Only thing is, of course, doesn't help you dodge when going first. You need to have a target. Your opponent must have a monster to be able to activate it, so that makes it a little worse, I think, that this next card I'm playing, but still, I think it's a very synergistic board breaker, and it's strong. And then I'm playing 3 Book of Eclipse, and this card, I got the idea for this card when I was playing against my friend on Labyrinth, and he was playing the Karma Cannons, right? And I realized after he drew the room at me and just flipped all my monsters face down that I literally gave no goddamn fucks about that. Like, this deck does not care about having monsters flip face down at all. And the reason is, you can still tribute your monsters when they're face down, and you can still know the statistics of the cards for tributing. So a card like Great Purification says you have to tribute a level 5 a higher reptile. Well, if your Futsu is flipped down, you can still tribute it. It still counts as a level 5 or higher reptile for the purposes of tributing. You know, same with prayers. So the fact that booking your own monsters almost does absolutely nothing, especially because we don't really go into a lot of extra plays anyway. So, you know, going first and then, you know, normal summoning Aramasa, the impermit, you just book your Aramasa. Normally, maybe in other decks, you're a bit sad because even though your starter is solved, you're losing the body on the field. In our deck, we just don't really do too many extra decks anyway. So and we honestly don't really care if our monsters are face down. Sometimes it's even good, right? You can just they're oftentimes a lot more protected when they're face down, actually, and you can very easily just reset them. You know, activate prayers, tribute, you're face down. Well, if it's a Namino or Futsu, even a Habakiri, just searches and comes back anyway. So yeah, I think Proof Eclipse synergizes really nicely with the decks. With the deck, we don't care about our monsters being face down at all, which is a funny thing to say, actually. And then finally, I was playing 2 copies of Frost and a Duster. And, you know, Duster is, of course, not good to draw going first. So I'm playing, like, you know, normally when you play board breakers, you play cards that are somewhat usable going first as well. And, you know, Wosu, we have talked about Wosu, but Habi's Feather Duster is almost completely useless. I mean, well, let's be honest, it is completely useless going first. Unless, of course, you're playing a grindy matchup and you know you're getting to turn 3 and you have Frost and you can get searches, but of course it does not help you play it, so let's just call it a break. It is a break going first. The reason I'm playing this in the main is just that I don't have space in the side right now. So if you have a different side deck load up than mine, feel free to just move this to the side deck. I wanted this Habi's Feather Duster in my deck or in my side deck, and I didn't have space in the side deck, so I ended up putting in the main deck. The reason is I think this is the best board breaker with Mitsurugi, just in terms of what it covers. Again, I've been saying it before, but the main weakness in terms of interruptions of Mitsurugi is that it doesn't really deal with spells and traps. Well, then that's the reason why we play Duster. It's really not rocket science. This card deals with spells and traps, and Mitsurugi cards have a hard time dealing with spells and traps. So I feel like this is the board breaker that shows up for Mitsurugi's weaknesses the most. It helps us cover our bases the most. You could also play, of course, Evenly Match, I think could also be, because Evenly also deals with spells and traps. So you could also play Evenly maybe, but I'm just choosing Feather Duster here. Yeah. And then 2 copies of Frost, mainly just to get talents of Feather Duster when going second, of course. And then when going first, we can set up some nice Frost targets. I will say that we are not playing any good Frost target in the main except Purification. But given our deck, our way of, we are very likely to end on level 5 or higher Reptile monsters. So even though, you know, Purification cannot help us when we get absolutely stopped, we have some other cards on the side for that. A lot of the times, Frost set Purification is very strong. And often you are able to get to a ritual monster on the field. Like most scenarios, even through interruptions. And so even though we don't have anything like Imperm or something like that in the main deck as a Frost target, we do have the Purification, and the Purification is a lot of the times good enough. And then we have some extra nice Frost targets in the side deck. So yeah, that's the deck. 41 right now, but should be 40, of course. Then I'll just go over the side deck now, just because we have been talking about it right now. So, you know, of course, I just said that I didn't have any space for Feather Duster or Wosu in my side deck. So you might be wondering, well, what am I putting in my side deck then? And the answer is pretty simple. We are just playing all of the Chamis. Yeah, just playing all of them. The idea here is that, of course, I don't need to tell you why Chamis are good, but I do think that one of the weaknesses of our deck is that when we're playing against a Wombo combo FTK deck, our engine is just not enough. Like, we have a Raigeki, we have a Kaiju, we have a bunch of stuff, right? But if we're playing like against Memento, Malice, White Forest, Mermail, maybe not so much Mermail after the nerfs, but still, we just you know, Rational Mitsurugi, right? Rational Mitsurugi, if they just get to full combo us, which they do, because we don't play any hand traps, we have a hard time because it's just 2 engines against 1, right? So therefore, I'm just loading up on the chamis. We want to stop them, the combo decks, and so worst matchups. I think as long as we can get to the grand game, we win basically 10 out of 10 games. Or maybe not 10 out of 10s, but we are very favorably matched against other mid-range deck and against control decks, I think. So we just need to worry about the combo decks, and that's why I'm playing all the chamis. Also, reason why I'm not main decking them, because I know it's very popular right now, and I am considering, and I was considering, and I'm still considering main decking something like Fuvelas. The reason is that I don't think our import is so strong that we can make up for having one less card in our hand when we go first. Like, basically, if we draw the Fuvelas, it's a very big break for us, and we don't. I think we need all the cards we can get when going first just to be able to survive. I don't think we can afford a brick like a Fuvelas going first, or at least we want to minimize those in our deck because our going first board is not unbeatable. It's not supposed to be unbeatable, but if we are unlucky with the draws and we cannot, then we might just get completely rolled over. So right now I'm not maining them, the chamis, because I do think they hurt us a little too much when we go first. That's basically the reason. And then the other 6 cards, I have 3 lenses. Yeah, don't need to talk about that. And then for some going first cards. Now this is where the spice comes in. We have the Planet Pollutant Virus, so that we are able to do the Alien Duck when going first. Now this is still something that I'm pretty unsure about, because the Alien Luck, if you don't know, I will go over it when we talk about the extra deck, but basically requires you to make at least 2 extra deck monsters. So it does make us weaker to chamis. It's also very hard to get to the bodies that we need to do it while getting interrupted. So if your opponent has on average 2 hand traps, you only half of the times get to the Alien Luck. I've tested that and just did a lot of test hands trying to figure out whether playing the Alien Luck is worth it or not. I didn't reach any conclusive evidence, but it seems about half the time, half the games where we get 2 or more hand traps, we can make it. And so it's not very consistent, of course, when under interruptions. But the main idea is that if we're playing against a heavy engine deck or heavy board breaker deck, like our own, basically, we want to have some way post-side deck to really up the power level of our import in case that we don't get interrupted. We want to have something very strong, because if we don't get interrupted, it probably means they have a bunch of board breakers. So that's the idea behind Alien Luck. It's something I sat in going first. Is it worth it? Is it worth playing? I am not entirely convinced, but it is definitely strong if you can pull it off. You almost always win the game if you can pull off the Alien Luck. And then I have this weird card. It's called Urgent Ritual Art. It's basically like fusion deployment that you use to play in Branded when your Branded fusion gets ashed. It's kind of the same. It says, if you control no ritual monsters, banish 1 ritual spell from your hand or graveyard. This card's effect become that card effect that ritual summons a monster when the card is activated. So basically, this is a thrust target for when we get absolutely stopped into the ground. When we don't get to our fusion, we don't get to our ritual, at all. We never got to ritual summon. We get rolled super early on and stuff like that. So, or you go ritual and they stop it with an impulse, and then you try to search, and then things get trolled, something like that. Like you just get completely stopped into the ground. We can set this card with thrust, and we can just go for the ritual summon of Amino on their turn instead. And I'm also not completely convinced about this card. It has been pretty useful for me though, with thrust. just to be able to do something when we get completely stopped. The only thing is it doesn't really do too much when we get to combo, because you know, ritual summoning on their turn, it's not very relevant when we already have the Amenor and Futsu in rotation. So it falls off if we do get to play, but it's, I think, pretty strong if we get absolutely stopped. And then lastly, Rivalry, I don't know. I'm not super sure about this card. In principle, I feel like it's very good because we're just playing a lot of reptiles, so it should be a strong end board piece against, again, like we do want some extra oomph when going first after siding, because our end board is not that strong and they're going to be siding in a bunch of things to stop us. So we do want some side deck going first cards, I think. It's just a bit unsure about which ones. For now, I'm trying Rivalry. It's obviously not too good against the Cybers deck. I think it's pretty good against Raichu. Obviously not super good in the mirror, although it could be pretty good against Raichu and Mitsurugi. Yeah, maybe this card is not super good in the meta right now. I don't know. But for now, this is just the card I'm trying out as a going first option. And I think we do need some going first options in our side deck, because our end board is not the strongest. Okay, so now for the extra deck. Where did I put the extra deck? Over here. Nice. So, of course, start off with the pretty obvious stuff. We have a Gurua, a Herald, a Tri-Brigade, Fergit. We have a Aggregator, and we have a Antesh. These 5 cards are just DS7 targets. Like, just want to note, we have a really good reason to play. We could play Ultimate Slayer as well. It's just that I don't think the Mitsurugi cards, when I play Wosu, I can just out any monster anyway. So I'm not too worried about monsters, more worried about other types of interactions. But yeah, playing all these. Not too much to note. These are, of course, for going second. Fergit, remember to send Fergit with Nadir Servant if you already have a monster on the field. That way they cannot Bestial it. If you send Garura, they can Bestial it and you won't be able to summon Maximus. So otherwise, if you don't have any monsters in the field, that obviously doesn't really matter. And yeah, so 5 cards dedicated just to Nadir Servant. And then we have some very stably cards here that I just think are generally pretty good. Sort of toolbox. Have the IP. This is what we end on most of the time, especially game 1 when we don't have the alien luck. So just make an IP. It's synergizes very well with Futsu, of course, because we just bring a bunch of monsters back, and then we can IP, primarily just for SP, right? Nothing too crazy about that. A Typhon, I'm not used to playing with. Okay, hi, I'm back. The video just stopped, but I hopefully not too long time ago, and I have a long time to go, and I think I can splice the videos together. So, yeah. Typhon, just, Typhon. And then King of the Fell Imps, basically we can make this as well. It's not just the rational players who can make this. We just use it sometimes to grab an extra reptile that we need. It comes up a bit often, honestly. And then lastly, Bagushka, just, you get rolled with 2 little fours on the field. You can't do anything else. Just make a Bagushka pass. And then the last things are basically the more experimental ones. Something that I'm not too certain on. It's a bunch of reptile monsters. So Lizardoise, it basically just draws a card. So we can use it sometimes when we just want to make the Cosmic Slicer. This is the link 3 that is part of the alien log. Sometimes we want to link up in this, and we can just make the lizard first and get a draw and then link up into Cosmic Slicer. This card searches the Planet Pollutant virus, and then it's like a one-carded Bagushka. When your opponent's monsters has A counters on them, they get changed to defense and they can't activate their effects. So one-sided Bagushka. And then, of course, the Shock Trooper. This is just a random alien monster that we can make, and because the Planet Pollutant virus, to activate it, we need to tribute an alien monster. So doesn't really matter what this card does. It's the only Ecto Deck alien monster link-wise. So we just make this so that we have an alien monster we can tribute, basically. That's the other part of the alien luck. So we need to make both of these. Sometimes you just make the Shock Trooper and you link up in Cosmic Slicer. And that is, of course, a bit worse than doing it the other way around with Lizardos having both on the field. But, or even just ending on the Shock Trooper is a bit stronger. But sometimes we don't have enough bodies, right? Because we don't have a lot of bodies in this deck. And then we have this Reptilian Echidna. This is like a link 2 that changes on summon one of your opponent's monsters attack to 0, and then has an ignition effect that is able to search a reptile monster. Search actually multiple reptile monsters up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. So, you know, if everything goes fine, it searches a reptile monster, puts something to 0. Basically, kind of a King of the Feral Imps, but for going second, basically. And then last card is Ragnaraka Selene Snapper. You might not know this card, but it's actually very strong. You banish up to 2 monsters in your graveyard and then target that many spell traps on the field to pop them. And then it does some other stuff that is not too relevant. So it's a link 3 that is basically a double Nightmare Phoenix without having to discard a card. It's very strong, again, just repeating that the Mitsurugi cards are not too good at dealing with the spell traps. So having an exotic monster that outspell traps is just extremely handy. And yeah, that's basically it. I do have maybe some other mentions that I would want to say that you could play. So let me just go over those, and then let me show you a combo, and then I think we'll call it, because this video is getting really long, to be honest. So just some quick options you could play. Gallant Granite to search Nibiru, and I know this sounds weird, but Nibiru is actually pretty strong as an import piece in our deck, because it just tributes all monsters on the field, and our monsters just comes back when they're tributed. So you can just search Nib and pass the turn, and then they play through your board, and if they're about to kill you or do something you don't like, you just Nib to reset the entire field, and you don't really care too much. So that's something you can do. Of course, you need to play Nib in your deck then. Dugaris, draw 2, discard 1. If you're playing the hand trap version or playing more non-engine, I think this could be pretty strong, just to search more non-engine. And then also Underworld Goddess. With IP, there is some scenarios where we just have a ton of bodies, because Futsu just spams bodies back on your opponent's turn. And so you could make Underworld Goddess with IP. I think not too difficult to make Underworld Goddess with IP. But of course, if things doesn't go that well, it's maybe not really that relevant. Crush Ship on Ritual Summon, draws 2, discards 2. Again, if you're playing a lot of non-engine, if you're just trying to find some relevant engine, this could be pretty strong. And you can also play an access code if you want to go for a more OTK style. It's pretty good with Selene Snapper. And then I want to show Beat Cup from the Underworld. It's kind of an interesting card. It places this beat counter that protects from destruction, but that's actually not the relevant part. Relevant part is just that it's a link 2 that you can just tribute any card on the field. And that is pretty nice. Sometimes you end on a Futsu that has not yet been tributed, so you can make this and tribute the Futsu to get an extra search. Of course, it does play a bit more into Nibiru then, because then your Futsu will not come back if they Nibiru you. But I think Beat Cup is mainly useful for going into a bow, because Beat Cup is a fiend also. So I think this is a very nice generic fiend link you can make that has a synergy with the deck, and then you can make a bow of it, obviously. Mostly a thing in the Octoadic version where you can link climb a lot, but you can also make it in this version. It's a bit harder to make, and to be honest, I don't think a bow really synergizes too much with our deck. Of course, summoning Amino back from the graveyard is strong, but all our other cards do that anyway. That's our entire game plan anyway, so it's a bit redundant. And then the pop 1 is also just kind of okay, but not really worth a whole link 4, I think. And she's of course good in the grind game as well, but I think her engine is also pretty strong in the grind game anyway, so yeah, definitely a card you can consider, but I'm not currently playing it. So that was some rapid fire tech choices or interesting extra deck monsters you can play. Now let me just show you the combo. Because I think that is about time that I actually showed a combo. So let me just have some coffee. So, just so you know, we'll just start with showing the one-card combos. You can, of course, get to these cards in multiple different ways. But let's just start off with just the Habakiri. You just activate Habakiri and you special summon the Saji and you tribute the Saji. And then the Saji will trigger and you will search out the prayers. Now you just say activate prayers and tribute the Habakiri for cost. And you just search out the Aramasa, and here you can pay 800 to summon something back or something from the hand. So you can either summon the Aramasa if you want to save your normal summon, or you can summon the Sashi if you just want an extra party. So let's just say we summon the Sashi. Now here you get a search of the Habakiri, and you just search the ritual. And then you just go normal summon Aramasa, and you add the Amino, and now you have Amino plus Ritual. It's really that simple. So just go Ritual here, and you basically, I don't play Night Sword Serpent in this build. You can play it if you want to. Let me just find it so I can show you what it is. So this card, you might have seen it before. It summons itself back when it's sent to the graveyard by card effect. And it doesn't do anything else. It's just a level 4 body. It's good for getting an extra body on the field. It's mostly relevant in other versions of the deck, I think, because in Mitsurugi Ritual, it's nice to have an extra level 4s to go into the King of Feral Imps. In Octoadic, you need to have something that summons back so you can tribute it with Curse. In this version, I've tried with and without playing Night Sword Serpent. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think you need to play it. It's a brick, and I want to minimize the bricks, so I'm not playing it. But if you were playing it, you could send it to the graveyard right now, because now we're tributing from the deck to ritual summon, and so you'd always tribute the Kusanagi, of course, and now we just tribute an extra Aramasa. That would have been, of course, the Night Sword Serpent if we had it, so we've gotten something extra if we chose to play the Night Sword Serpent. And then Kusanagi will trigger here and target one of our cards in the graveyard or banish and add it back, so we add back the ritual. Now we just activate the ritual once again and tribute the Amino to summon from the deck. And then we summon out the Futsu. And then Amino will trigger in our graveyard to add a Mitsurugi card and summon itself back. And so here you can do two different things. You can just add the purification right now and just summon back the amino, add the purification, and then that's pretty much it. You can then use these 3 bodies as materials for some extra deck plays, and then you pass on the great purification. If you want an extra body and you're not scared of Nibiru, then you can instead choose to add, where is it? The mirror instead. And the idea here is just that we have not yet tributed our Futsu. And so you can just go mirror and tribute the Futsu in order to summon out the Habakiri from the graveyard. And then Futsu will trigger on a new chain and add our Great Purification and summon itself back. So that's just a way to get an extra body. But of course now Futsu has been tributed. So if the nib is here, we just lose everything, right? So, and I personally don't think there's too much to do with this extra Habakiri body. But if you have something that you really want to do and you need the extra body, for example, if you're post-side decking and you're trying to make the alien luck, then it's nice maybe to have an extra body. Your opponent probably also sided out the Nibiru going against you. So maybe this is something like a going second thing. Because now we have the 4 bodies, we need to make a Cosmic Slicer. Even let me just show you. We can just go, we can just go these 2. Always keep the amino on the board as long as possible, because then if they do interrupt you, they will have to discard. And we just go Haggard Lizardos, always banish the Armasa, because we have the most of those, to draw 1 card. And then we just go these 2 here into the Cosmic Slicer, and we search the Planet Pollutant Virus, and then we go these 2 here into the Shock Trooper. And so post side, that would be maybe something you could do. Then you have the Futsu, the Great Purification, the Shock Trooper, and the Planet Pollutant. And the Planet Pollutant is basically a Raigeki. You tribute an alien monster and you destroy all monsters your opponent controls that does not have alien counters on them. And then for the next 3 turns of their turns, until the end of their of their 3rd turn after this card is activated, all their monster gets A counters. And so you at some point you Raigeki their field, and then when they summon monsters, you just summon back with Futsu. You summon back the Slicer, and the Slicer is this one-sided Bakushka that turns everything they have with A counters to defense position and makes it so they can't activate their effects, and that's basically the alien luck. But if we just go back a couple of steps here to the point where we had Futsu, and we know we had our Amino and our Sachi, and we just summoned back here, and we did not use the mirror. So right now, right in this position here, we still have the Futsu protection. If we get nipped, the Futsu will just come back, and we can even just search, a Prayers, right? So they are actively discouraged here from nipping us. We can just use 2 bodies and make a an IP, right? It doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like much, and don't misunderstand. It isn't that much, but it just needs to be enough to buy us a turn, right? That's the whole point. It's not too much interruption. We have the Great Purification, we have the Amino, we have the IP, we have the Futsu to summon stuff back. It's not crazy a lot, but it's enough. That's the whole point. And then I also want to just quickly note here that if you're in this position and you just you're playing one of these other cards that I mentioned, for example, you are playing something like a Dugaros or a Gallant Granite, you can just use these 2 here, make a Gallant Granite, search a nib, make a Dugaros and draw some cards, search for some non-engine, and then just use these 2 to make the IP again. It's not that necessary for Amino to stay on the field. Honestly, you can have it in the graveyard because Futsu will revive it back. It's maybe a tiny bit safer to have the Amino as well, but then again, they could also just, deal with it in some other way. So some other times it's also nice to have it in graveyard. It's up to you, really. I'm not main decking Dogaris or Gallant Granite, so therefore I don't really have too much to do with the bodies. So I just use the 2 small ones to make IP and let the Aminos stay on field. That's the basic combo when you're going first. And also I guess I also showed the alien lock as well. Of course, everything just gets better the more engine you draw. This was just one Habakiri. And I will also say that, I guess I think I need to sort of say this, that this combo, you have multiple different lines that can do similar things. So, for example, with Amino here, you basically, when you, or the Habakiri, sorry, when you reveal it in your hand, you basically, when you're just doing one card combo, you have to get Saji, tribute Saji. Now, in the previous version, we got prayers. We can also actually grab ritual here. And you might be like, that's really weird. Why would you grab ritual? And I'm not saying you should. I just want to highlight that there are different lines here that you can take that play around different stuff. And now we can ritual, right? And we can even ritual summon this from our hand by sending from the graveyard. Or we can ritual something from the deck by tributing this right now. So, for example, if we tribute this here to summon out, let's say, oh, I have them here. Sorry. Summon out an Amino. We do get a Habakir trigger here, and here we can then search something like the prayers. We can go prayers and tribute here, and then we can go, you know, add Aramasa, summon back the Saji, and then the Amno will trigger here, and we'll get a search, and we can search for something like we can search for something like a new. Where is the where is my rituals? There it is, a new ritual. And then we can go Amasa here, normal summon, and we can add Futsu, right? And now we can activate our rituals to ritual summon our Futsu from my hand by sending, and we can send something like the Kusanagi and the Aramasa, and then here on a new chain we can add back with Kusanagi we can add back the prayers. And so, you know, here we didn't get to the Great Purification, but we still ended on prayers. And, you know, depending on what you want to do, or if you have more cards, you could also just tribute the Futsu and get to the Purification anyway. Let's roll back to the beginning again. So this is just to showcase that there are different ways to play. I think the first one I showed you is the most generic, the most optimal one. But in this situation here, you know, even if we are forced into, like say for example, we open this and we go Habakiri, but they ash it. And so we just have this left. Then it's just good to recognize that you are actually still in a position where you can play, right? And let's say that we try again here and try a different path. We go Habakiri and we summon the Saji, we tribute the Saji, we search the ritual again, but this time we try to summon the Habakiri, right? And let's see what happens. We go summon the Habakiri, and then we can do some different things here. I think what I would like to do is actually to maybe tribute the Amino from deck actually, and then you can go Amino and you can add you can add. Well, let me just get the mirror here. You can tribute amino here, and then you can add something like prayers, right? And then you go amino, and you tribute you go prayers, you tribute the habakiri, you add the aramasa, and you summon out the saji here. And then you change your, oh, sorry, I was out of camera. Your habakiri can search. And you can search, again, you can search probably the ritual here. You go summon, you go add futsu. And we are in a similar position again. You can go ritual here. And then this time you just tribute Kusanagi and Aramasa. You tribute you summon this, and then Kusanagi will trigger and add back your prayers. And yeah, maybe I did that in a slightly different way, or slightly wrong way. The idea is to add a mirror actually. So let me just think. Yeah, I think I did it in a wrong way. Let me just quickly correct that. Let me just correct that. We have amino and ritual. Oh, we use this summon Saji, tribute Saji, add the ritual. Then we ritual summon the habakiri, which is very weird to do, right? And we send Kusanagi and Aramasa from the graveyard, or to the graveyard. We tribute them from the deck rather. And then we have a Kusanagi that adds back the ritual. And we have an Aramasa that adds, you know, something like the futsu in this, maybe the amino actually in this situation. No, the futsu, I think. And you go ritual, and you tribute the futsu to summon out, or you just, you tribute, yeah, you can tribute the futsu here, summon out the amino, and then futsu will trigger, and you can search the mirror, and then mirror here, you can tribute the habakiri, and you can summon out the futsu, and you will get to search something like the grave purification. And okay, I'm just maybe a bit, this is slightly overcooked here. I just wanted to show that maybe this part of the video should just be cut out, to be honest. But there's just, I wanted just to show that there's many different variations of this combo, and I'm not totally an expert on which one is best to do in which scenario. I do think the first one I showed you is the most straightforward, optimal one, but just be aware that you can do different things depending on what you think your opponent has in their hand. So sometimes you might not want to, if you're under Fuvelas, for example, you might not want to summon from deck using the ritual. And so how do we deal with that scenario if you don't want to give them a draw, or you think they're maybe on Ash? Well, you can add, you can try to get to the mirror instead, and you can try to get the ritual, for example, the futsu here in your graveyard. If you set that up, then you can mirror and you can summon it back from the graveyard instead. And so that's a way to maybe avoid giving your opponent a draw off of Fuvelas. And of course, also the same is true for under Perulia, where the ritual summon that does it from the hand. But if you want to avoid doing that, then you can summon from the deck, and maybe you can, and then get to mirror and summon the other one from the graveyard, and then that's a way to get around Fuvelas. So yeah, slightly overcooked, I think, on my last combo. Should have been better prepared. I wasn't actually sure what I was doing. I hope you get the idea that you shouldn't play this deck like an on-rails combo. You should really try to think about what your opponent has, what is their interaction points. For example, the last one I showed you, we never even normal summoned, right? So even though we did have less bodies on the field, there was no point, no moment for them to imperm or veil us at all. So if you know they have certain interactions, you can sculpt your line to play around those interactions. And I think that is what this deck is all about. I think it has a very high skill ceiling in that regard, where you can do the combo in very many different ways to play around your opponent's interaction. And I think ultimately that will be what wins you the game. So I guess my overall message with this was that I don't think it's correct to just learn one combo and do that one combo without thinking. I think there is just a ton of different permutations of these combos. Even just the one-card combo, right? This was all just Habakiri. You can do the Habakiri combo in a lot of different ways. Some, of course, end with more bodies than others. Some you have great purification, some you don't. But the best one to choose is the one that plays around your opponent's interactions the most. So yeah. So, and of course it gets just crazier the more cards you have. Although I will say it doesn't get really super crazy in the terms of output. Like, you're still ending on the same things. The things you can scale on if you have more cards is your back row. You basically can get you start off prioritizing the prayers, then you can, the great purification, then you can add the prayers, and then of course if you have more searches you can add the Magatama. If you are able to make something like Haggard Lizardois or Duragus, I can't say his name right now, but the one that draws 2, discards 1. You can fish for some non-engine to also end on, or Gallant Granite Search Nib and something like that, but it doesn't get crazy. Nothing here is crazy. The way to scale up is probably just more getting some draws and ending on up to 3 cards here in the back row. That's as crazy as it will be. The strong part of this engine and this combo is not the end board, it's how many things you can play through and how many things you can play around if you're sequencing correctly and if you're mindful of your opponent's interruptions. I don't have, maybe I should do a hand trap specific guide on how to play, which combo to use to play around different hand traps. If your opponent is on Bestials, you're playing against Malice, right? You want to be able to do the lines that play through Malice. If you go Talents and take a look at their hand, and you feel like you have to take their non-engine, in most cases you probably it's the right choice to take their engine and then just do the line that plays around the non-engine that they have in their hand. I do think that most of the time it is possible to play around almost any non-engine with this deck if you have the right number of engine, of course. Sometimes, the one-card combo just gets stopped by an Ash, right? You go reveal Habakiri, they Ash it, and you just can't do anything. And that's that, right? But if it goes through, then... Hello, I just wanted to say that my phone ran out of storage, which is probably a good thing since I was talking for so long. If anyone ever watched this, let me know. I don't expect anyone to watch it, but let me know if you did. See ya.